Ever wonder, like, how those, ancient ancestors of ours, the ones dealing with life before the wheel even, how they even start wrapping their heads around the big stuff? Where do we come from? What happens after we die?
It really is quite a journey when you think about it, especially when we peel back the layers of like organized religion we're familiar with now
Mm,
and go way back to a time when belief wasn't so much about, doctrines and scriptures, but more about just making it to the next day.
totally. And that's exactly where we're headed in this deep dive, those raw, primal roots of religion. We're using the Urantia book as our guide, specifically paper 86, which digs into how religious thought first came about.
And the interesting thing is the book suggests it didn't start with some big booming voice from the heavens, some like instant revelation. Instead, it kind of grew naturally out of fear, the role of chance, and that very human need to make sense of a world they just didn't have the tools to understand.
Right. Like, try picturing them for a second. Yeah. Huddled around a fire, the darkness all around, just pressing in. Every sound, the wind, thunder, whatever it all must have felt charged with meaning, maybe even danger.
Exactly. And the book points out that chance, or luck as we might call it, played a huge role in all of this. Imagine just for a minute being a hunter-gatherer. Your whole existence, eating that day or not, it all came down to things totally outside your control.
Intense, right? Every sunrise was like rolling the dice, and the Urantia book really emphasizes how these early humans were up against this constant something for nothing, nothing for something kind of deal.
And it suggests this awareness. It went deeper than just understanding it. This constant uncertainty, feeling powerless to the forces around them, created this deep anxiety, this need to somehow get a handle on these unseen forces.
So rather than just accepting things as random, they sought out agency, right? A reason, a personality behind it all. It's kind of like how even today we still knock on wood or avoid walking under ladders, like these little echoes of that old desire to, I don't know, appease the unknown.
Absolutely. And the Urantia book argues this impulse, this need to personify what we can't see, it's deeply rooted in us. When faced with something unexplainable, early humans, with what little they understood about the natural world, well, they looked for answers in the supernatural.
So a good hunt wasn't just good luck, it was a sign you'd made the right spirit happy. But a sudden illness, or like a flood, that meant you'd messed up somewhere, angered the wrong one.
It's a fascinating look into how our minds work. Even today you can see bits of this. Stub your toe on a chair. People curse at it as if the darn thing moved on purpose.
Or how about when people say, oh, the universe is testing me? It's like we inherited this need to give agency to the unexplainable, even when intellectually we know better.
Right. And this instinct, this need to find meaning in the random, it went into overdrive when it came to the ultimate mystery.
Death. Yeah. Death, especially when it seemed to just happen, no warning, must have been terrifying for them.
Oh, absolutely. Try to imagine that confusion, that fear. The Urantia book even mentions how some cultures wailed at every sunrise, like terrified of what darkness the next night might bring. Really highlights how deeply the fear of the unknown, of what's after this life, was ingrained in them.
Which is what makes the whole ghost soul idea, this belief that part of us lives on after we die, so interesting. And it wasn't like one size fits all, right? How different cultures pictured that ghost soul, what happened to it after death. It was all over the place.
Yeah, the book really makes that point. The Urantia book uses that variety as like proof of how much the human mind was struggling here, trying to make sense of something so big, so beyond anything they knew. They came up with different answers.
Which, I mean, makes sense, right? Thinking about it. They only had so much to go on, their own experiences, trying to understand something totally outside of that, like explaining the internet to someone who's never even seen a computer.
Exactly. They latched on to what they did know, what they could see around them, breath, their shadows, reflections. It became like the basic building blocks of the soul.
Almost like they were trying to catch the invisible, reflected in the visible world.
Right. Like the Urantia book talks about these breath dreams. Imagine that for a sec. You're an early human, someone dies, body stops, the spark's gone, obviously.
Yeah.
But the breath, too, that invisible thing that makes us alive, gone. But then, sometimes on a cold day, you see it, right? Breath turns into this cloud, this vapor. Maybe that's the soul leaving.
It's kind of beautiful how they took those little moments, those observations, and made them part of how they understood the afterlife.
And dreams. Can't forget those.
Yeah.
To them, dreams weren't just like imagination. They were as real as being awake. So imagine how real it felt when they dreamt of someone who died. Talking to them, interacting, that was proof as far as they were concerned. Some part of that person was still out there.
Those dreams became like a bridge between worlds almost. comforting and also reinforcing that belief that there's something after this life.
And these beliefs, they didn't just stay abstract, they got real practical, real fast. Like the fear of a soul escaping when someone sneezes led to all these rituals meant to, like, trap it in the body, catching the dying person's last breath, hoping that was their essence you were grabbing hold of.
It's so easy to just call that superstition now. But picture that realization for the first time, the breath and like the self being connected. Must felt profound. And it shows how much we need to hold on to what we care about, even when faced with death.
The Urantia book suggests that this need to grapple with death, to find a way for something to last, it played a huge part in shaping not just those early religious practices, but morality too, eventually.
So this fear of the unseen, this ghost environment the book talks about, it's behind everything from how they buried people to the whole idea of right and wrong.
Think about it. If you believe you're constantly surrounded by these unseen forces, these ghost souls, watching your every move, able to help or hurt you, well, you're going to be careful how you act, right? That belief that there were consequences beyond just the physical world, that laid the groundwork for ethical behavior.
So from this fear, this, I guess, misunderstanding of the world in a way, came this whole system of values of right and wrong. It's kind of wild.
It's the big paradox the book points out. Something built on, let's be honest, a flawed understanding of how things worked. But it still gave rise to a sense of morality, of right and wrong, that's had a huge effect on human civilization.
Makes you think, though. It's been a while since those early days, right? Science has explained so much that they just didn't get. So where does that leave us? Have we really grown out of this need to believe?
$1 million question, right?
Okay.
Sure, we might not blame a storm or getting sick on some angry spirit anymore, but have we really moved past this need to find reasons, to look for explanations outside of ourselves?
Instead of spirits, maybe we blame the government when things go wrong, or the economy, or how society is set up. Like, the names change, but the impulse is the same.
Exactly. The Urantia book makes us think. Have we really evolved past the need for the supernatural? Or has it just, changed clothes to fit in with the modern world?
So we've been talking about how those early humans, with this mix of being afraid and kind of amazed by everything, tried to use the supernatural to explain the world.
And it's amazing, really, how those early beliefs try and make sense of luck, death, the soul. It all kind of laid the groundwork for organized religion as we know it.
It's like they were building this whole belief system, rituals, who's in charge, what's right and wrong, all based on ghost souls and these forces they couldn't see.
Yeah, and the Urantia book points out, it's not like it was always some scam. Remember, to them, that ghost environment was just as real as the ground they walked on.
So those shamans, priests, whoever, saying they could talk to the spirit world, they weren't all making it up. They might have really believed they were reading signs, talking to spirits, calming down the unseen forces.
Exactly. And as those guys gained more influence, what they said, the rituals they did, it shaped how those early communities worked.
Makes you wonder now how much of what we call religion today, all those rituals and rules, how much goes all the way back to trying to please that ghost environment.
That's the big question. Keeps those anthropologists and religion experts busy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. Even if those early beliefs miss the mark sometimes, they did something important.
They gave people a way to understand life, death, why we're here.
Right. And like the Urantia book says, that's no small thing. Those early religious impulses, even if they seem kind of messed up now, it was a huge step for humans. Beginning of a long, winding road to moral thinking, exploring what's spiritual, wanting something more than just this physical life.
It's like by trying to make sense of what they didn't get, by making those forces into people, they stumbled onto something deeper, something that just feels true to us as humans.
And that wanting, that search for what it all means, what our purpose is, that's still going strong. We might got more sciencey about the big questions now, but that desire to connect to something bigger than us, that's still a big part of being human.
So, wrapping up our deep dive here into how religion got started, we're left with this. Maybe what really matters from those early beliefs isn't the exact rituals or which gods they believed in. It's that drive, that human need to find meaning even when faced with the unknown. To find connection in a world that can feel so random and chaotic sometimes.
And maybe, just maybe, that same drive's going to keep pushing us, leading us to understand even more, connect even deeper as we keep exploring the universe and where we fit into it all.
Thanks for joining us on this trip back to the roots of religion. Until next time, keep those questions coming, stay curious, and keep on diving deep.